Have you ever wondered why Paul, the man of deep revelations, still carried a thorn in his flesh? Why Peter, who walked beside Jesus himself, would point out that some people misuse Paul's words? What if that thorn wasn't just about Paul's personal weakness, but something deeper happening with the word itself? And the word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John chapter 1 verse 14. Jesus, the living word, became human. He stepped into weakness, not to dominate but to dwell with us. He taught with stories. He reached the hearts of fishermen, children, and outcasts. He never made the word complicated. He made it alive, approachable, simple. But when we meet Paul in the New Testament, something feels different. He writes with deep mystery, layers of theology, and divine revelation, according to 2 Corinthians 12 verses 2 and 4. And then, he tells us, "And lest I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelations, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure." 2 Corinthians 12:7. He prayed for it to be removed 3 times, but God said, "My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:9. That thorn wasn't only about personal pain. It was about the weight of the word Paul carried. It was a divine limiter, a safeguard, a signal that grace was required to keep revelation grounded. Because the deeper the revelation, the greater the risk of misinterpretation. Then Peter, yes, Peter, the one who walked on water, who watched Jesus feed multitudes and wash feet, Peter writes with a burden, "Even as our beloved brother Paul also according to the wisdom given unto him, hath written unto you, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction." 2 Peter 3:15 through 16. Peter wasn't criticizing Paul, he was protecting the flock. He saw the danger of twisted doctrine, not because Paul was in error, but because the listeners were unprepared. They lacked foundation, they lacked humility, and revelation became ruin instead of renewal. Peter had watched Jesus teach with clarity and compassion, because the truth wasn't hidden in doctrine, it was wrapped in love. And Jesus, he didn't turn away the unlearned. He didn't rebuke the unstable. He stooped to them. He spoke in parables, not puzzles. He talked about seeds and sparrows, coins and vineyards, bread and water. He didn't demand people rise to the clouds. He brought heaven down to the ground. The common people heard him gladly, Mark 12:37. To the unlearned he said, "Come unto me." He touched lepers. He wept with the grieving. He ate with sinners and tax collectors. He didn't hand out scrolls of theology. He offered living water. "If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink." John 7:37. He called fishermen, not philosophers. He put children in the center, not scholars. He didn't confuse depth with difficulty or holiness with distance. He made the word walkable. He made truth touchable. He didn't speak over heads. He spoke into hearts. When he taught, the crowds were astonished, not by complexity, but by compassion wrapped in authority. For he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Matthew 7:29. So when Peter saw people twisting Paul's words, it wasn't mere doctrine that concerned him, it was the danger to souls. He had seen how truth could heal or harm, and he knew that unhampered revelation could lead to ruin. So consider this, Paul's thorn wasn't merely suffering, it was mercy. It was God's way of keeping the word in Paul from overshadowing the word made flesh. Because without that thorn, if his gift flowed unchecked, his voice, full of mystery and power, might have seemed final. And the church could have exalted the messenger over the message. But the thorn, it reminded Paul he was just a man, a vessel, a jar of clay. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God, and not of us, 2 Corinthians 4:7. It reminds us that when the word becomes flesh in us, It passes through our humanity, and yielded humanity distorts holiness. Paul's thorn wasn't a curse, it was grace. It whispered, "Truth without humility is dangerous. Depth without compassion becomes distortion." Jesus knew how to carry the word in flesh. Paul had to learn it through weakness. Peter saw the warning signs. He wasn't accusing Paul, he was guarding the flock. So if you carry a thorn, don't despise it. It may not be punishment, it may be protection. It may be what keeps the word in you from becoming pride through you. Because the word still becomes flesh, and it still needs grace to stay pure. Let the thorn remind you, we're not called to impress but to express Christ, not to be clever but to be clear, not to speak louder but to live lower. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities, for when I am weak, then am I strong. 2 Corinthians 12:10. In our weakness, his word becomes real. That's what Peter saw, and that's what we must remember. So, be careful. You might be preaching the Pauline gospel instead of the message, Jesus Christ. Thank you for watching. Please leave us a comment, subscribe, and share for more insight in the Word of God.